Your mother wants you. You're such a good friend, Nellie.
She calls herself a Prairie Bitch. Alison Arngrim of Little House. Today on Pop Goes the Culture. Hi, I'm David Levin, and welcome to another ventilated episode of Pop Goes the Culture. This is part 2 of my conversation with Alison Arngrim, Nellie Olsen of Little House on the Prairie. Alison has a new autobiography out based on her one-woman show, Confessions of a Prairie Bitch. If you missed part 1, go watch it. We'll wait for you. Today, we'll talk about the hazards of the 19th century, wheelchairs, stunts, killer bees, mouthfuls of mud, guest stars on the prairie.
What sorts of visitors did you have to the set?
Oh, let's see. We had all sorts of strange people to set. We had, of course, we would have groups of fans would come, and we would like let them come on the set and like stop what we're doing. And that was the thing. Michael would drop whatever he was doing for a group of fans. He would just he'd be yelling at someone, go, hold that thought. Oh, hi, how are you? And like schmooze with the family, kiss the baby, hug the wife, or sign autographs. And then they'd leave, and he'd turn around and go, and another thing. And it was just like the fans came first. It was like, and he used to say, he said, that's who you work for. Those are your customers. Yeah, you don't work for the network. You work for these people who watch the show. This is who we're taking care of. So that was really cool. We would have people who were distant relatives of the Ingalls family would show up. We would meet with them, and that was always where people say, well, I'm the descendant of blah, 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 Charles Ingalls, and they come to the show. And I thought, that must be weird for them, because the show wasn't really perfectly historically accurate. So if you're really there as a historian or an Ingalls relative, like you're hanging out with Nellie and Mrs. Olsen in the commissary, what does that mean? That must have been very strange. But yes, we had everybody.
How about any famous visitors?
Well, we had everyone on the show. We had all these marvelous people. We had Patricia Neal. We had Ernest Borgnine and all this. And I remember, I think was it the Ernest Borgnine? Yes, it was. It was Ernest Borgnine. I didn't get to be there, but Ernest Borgnine, I am told, and this was a wonderful celebrity story, Ernest Borgnine spilled coffee on his dressing room floor and cleaned it up himself. And I was told that the guy who was cleaning the dressing rooms, he was saying he came by the end of the day, and there's Ernest Borgnine, his hands and knees, mopping up the floor with napkins. And he said, Mr. Borgnine, really, we clean the trailers out every night anyway. You don't need to do that. And he said, oh no, my wife would kill me if I did this at home. And so mopping up, so that's why I always tried to keep my dressing room nice, because as my Auntie Marion, who took me to the set, reminded me, honey, if Ernest Borgnine can get down on his hands and knees and mop up the floor, you can pick up your clothes. So,
Good point.
We tried to be very good. We did. See, that's the thing. It was Little House on the Prairie. You had to hang up your clothes. You couldn't trash your dressing room. You had to
Nellie.
Even Nellie. You had to be nice. and it was like, we had this weird thing. It was like being in the 1800s because, we had dressing rooms where there was a TV and a stereo and air conditioning, but they didn't work. We were out in the middle of nowhere, and it wasn't like now where there's all the satellite dishes and stuff. There was no TV or radio reception out on location at that point, so you turn them on, you didn't get anything. And because the generators made so much noise, they turned the air conditioning off for most of the day. They turned it on for only like an hour. So, and then the only bathrooms were porta potties and chemical toilets, so much like an outhouse, just made of plastic. The only phone, there were no cell phones yet, it was the 70s, so the only phone was about a mile down the road at a farmhouse. And so there were no Blackberries and cell phones or any of this, and there was no laptop computers and no wireless, and even the radio didn't work. So for 9 hours a day, you had no phone, no radio, no television, no electricity, no air conditioning. You were in 1800s clothing, and you had to use the modern equivalent of an outhouse. So it was very easy to really get into the mood and into character. It was sort of like doing 1800s House on PBS. It was like we were really stranded there.
That's hysterical. You talked about the menagerie of the Little House on the Prairie set. Talk about any sort of mishaps with mishaps with animals? Or?
Mishaps with animals, yes. The bees. Michael Landon saved me from being stung to death by bees. We had a little bee disaster. There's an episode where Of course, me and Mrs. Olsen, once again, being idiots, decide to, get a great deal on some honey, so they're going to buy these bees. What the hell were we thinking? We're getting a log full of bees. And this would involve me and Catherine in a wagon with a bunch of bees. Now, when they planned to do this, they were actually going to have bees swarming around us for the bee stinging scene. But they brought in these special bees. And Michael met with the guy, the bee wrangler, if you will. And he told him that he had trained bees. Well, we were a little skeptical, and luckily Michael was too, and apparently sat down with the guy, because we're not using these bees. He said, trained bees, right, yeah, sure, gotcha. Let me see the trained bees. And the guy's bringing out these bees because they don't sting. They've been like given this gas, and they're totally mellow. I mean, they'll swarm around. They will not sting, they do not sting, they do not sting. This bee lands on Michael Landon's arm and stings him. Said, okay, so much for the trained bees. Cut the bee. That was it. He said, please take your bees and go ahead. So the bees are done in another shot, and that's why when you see Catherine and I being swarmed by bees, we are not being swarmed by bees. It's sort of very early 70s bad trick photography. It looks kind of cheesy now. Looked really good then. Sort of like Star Wars looked good at the time, But there are no actual bees, and there would have been had Michael not been the kind of person who tested the bees out himself. The bees failed, and hence were annexed from the set.
I understand. That is an animal mishap, isn't it?
Because we could have been like, killer bee time.
Any guests from Bonanza come to the show?
Guests from
Even as a
Bonanza?
visitor?
Well, gosh, who did we have on the show? We had, was it Dirk Blocker, Dan Blocker's son? So yes, we had that was the other thing. Little House on the Prairie was the land of people's relatives. I'm like the only person on the show who didn't have someone I was related to working there. In fact, one of the trivia questions I'll sometimes ask audiences when I go speak is can you name all of the people on the show who are related to each other? And so you had, Michael Landon's daughter, Leslie Landon, was Etta Plum, the teacher. And then, of course, you have Melissa Gilbert's brother, Jonathan Gilbert, played Willie. And then you have Robin and Rachel, the twins, who played Baby Carrie. And then you had the twins that played Baby Grace, and then you had the twins that played Baby Rose, Laura's baby, and then you had my twins who played Bennifer, Jennifer and Benjamin. And then you had Matt Laberteau and Patrick Laberteau, who were Andy Garvey and Albert Ingalls. So yes, all of these people were related to each other, and you had all these guest people, and then you had relatives of people in Bonanza. It was very weird.
I understand.
Dirt. We're going to do the mud fight one.
Let's talk about
the mud fight.
Yes, please set it up as, okay, now you're going to get some dirt.
All right, you want dirt? Now, literally, dirt. There's an episode where it's the one where, once again, I lie to Laura. I was always amazed these episodes, Laura would get caught in these things where I would tell her something that wasn't true, and she'd go to him like, why was she still believing me? I've been lying to her for 7 years, and why would she still believe me at this point? But amazingly enough, in the episode where she's taking the test to get out of school and become a teacher, I lie to her and tell her it's multiple choice, and of course it's like essay. Yeah, it's like, why she would take my word for it, I have no idea. But so she flunks, and it's a huge train wreck. So she comes to kick my ass, basically. And there's this huge mud puddle, this big stagnant pond, and she whacks me, and we have this real, dynasty mud fight, which is actually was pre-dynasty. So we actually invented the mud fight that Joan Collins and Linda Evans, they stole it from us, because we did it first. So we're rolling around in the mud, and it's disgusting. And she gets me in a headlock. Don't ever get in a fight with Melissa Gilbert. She's very strong and wiry. She'll knock you right down. She's a very tough girl. So she gets me in this headlock, and I'm screaming, screaming. We're having a great time because it's like 100 degrees in the shade in Simi Valley. So finally we're in like a pool of cool water. We're like, we don't care if it's dirty. We're just not hot anymore. So we're like, so we're smacking each other around, having a lovely time. And it's really fun to fight with someone you're friends with, because then nobody really gets hurt. You go, okay, I'm going to whack you from the right, so turn your head. Okay, boom. We had a lovely time. So she's got me in this headlock. I'm screaming away. And suddenly her hand comes around, and there's a ball of mud she has palmed. And I go, and the last minute I see it, and she goes, ugh, and totally on purpose shoves this golf ball size wad of dirt into my mouth. And as bad as that sounds, here's the worst part. In some shows with quicksand, Gilligan's Island, there's a lot of that Fuller's earth and styrofoam water. No. We only used real organic dirt on Little House on the Prairie. We didn't do the Fuller's earth fake dirt. This was an actual pond that in the winter when it filled with water was a duck pond. actual ducks doing what ducks do in ponds. And in the summer when it dried out, it was a cow pasture with actual cows doing what actual cows do in cow pastures. So you have duck waste and cow waste and water and dirt and then whatever chemical effluvia, because, it's Simi Valley, California. So, you've got the Rocketdyne lab up the road. So, God only knows what's in this pond. I glow in the dark. So there's all this crap. And this goes into my mouth. So we finish the scene. I have dirt in my teeth. If you watch the episode, when I'm screaming at the end and I'm hitting the water and Almanzos come take away, and I'm going, look, you can see actual dirt in between my teeth, like broccoli, like I've been eating rocks or something. It's disgusting. So I get out of the thing, and we have a doctor on the set. They have a medic, and he's freaking. And I'm like, okay, how bad is this? And he's like, this is terrible. And I said, well, he goes, it didn't get in your eyes, did it? And he's panicking that I got it in my eye. He goes, you could get a major eye infection from this. This is really terrible. And he's getting swabs. And I went, oh, no, it didn't get in my eye. It got in my mouth. I ate it. And he's like, okay, that's really bad. It's like, call this number later. So I did not get sick. I am apparently impervious to duck poop and cow poop and chemical nuclear waste. I'm immune to everything.
Did you talk to her afterwards?
Yes, I was like, dude, you put mud in my mouth. She's like, did you see that? That was good, huh? Oh, no, she still laughs about that one. She says, remember when I made you eat the ball of dirt? That was cool.
Was it her idea impulsively, or did somebody sort of coach her?
No, I have to say, Melissa Gilbert is capable of coming up with her own evil things to do. She did that one by herself. She just couldn't resist. She goes, it was too good a target. You were sitting there with your mouth open. She said, I couldn't resist.
It made the episode.
It did. It's fabulous. It's just because if you watch closely, you can see it, and you go, oh my God, she just shoved a wad of dirt in that girl's mouth, and you can see actual dirt in my teeth. And it's real. We're not faking it. It's the real thing.
Stanislavski method.
Yeah. We were very method.
What are some of the other things that you... there were a couple of episodes that are particularly memorable. I was reading some of them. The Nellie Crippled.
This is everyone's favorite episode in the entire world. That's why I have to talk. I mean, in my show, Confessions of a Prairie Bitch, it's like the grand finale. We discuss the wheelchair episode. Yes, I fall off a horse. Well, I fall off Laura's horse that I stole because I conned her into trading her pony for a stove for her mother. And then I fall off her horse because I am beating it with a riding crop. I'm abusing the animal and I'm thrown. So this is so my fault. I have this coming. I deserve this. I crash into a tree branch and oh my God. The tree branch crash was really nice. You see me riding and then it really does look painful, like I go straight to a tree branch. And the way they did is I'm sitting on a box and there's a sheet of plexiglass and they swing a tree branch and hit the plexiglass and I go, ow, and fall over backwards. So it looked really good. And people go, how'd you do that? So I big welt. And I'm knocked into unconsciousness and they freak out. So when I come to, I of course decide to milk the sympathy and pretend to be crippled. I can't walk, my legs are numb, I'm paralyzed. And Doc Baker's poking me in the toe with a needle, and yes, those are my feet, and no, it didn't hurt. He didn't really stab me very hard with the needle. But so I'm getting poked with a pin, and I feel a thing. So I pretend to be crippled. I throw the whole town into disarray. I'm not just hurting Laura at this point, because now my parents think I'm not going to be able to walk. Paul Ingalls has to make me a wheelchair. I mean, I just wreck the whole town with this one. I just screw up everyone's life. It's particularly bad. And so I got to run around this 1800s wheelchair. Now, the problem is, when we shot this episode, if you watched it, you'll see that I have this cast on the arm as well. It's the 1800s cast. Here's the trick. I used to have a skateboard. Not that I was good at it, but I had a skateboard. And when I was 13 years old, I was out skateboarding, and I fell off my skateboard. And I hit my head, and I scraped my knee, and I broke my arm. This was the 70s when we were stupid and did not wear helmets and wrist pads and knee pads. everyone should wear wrist pads and knee pads and helmets because this would not have happened to me had I been wearing safety equipment. But I wasn't. I was a schmuck, and I went down, and I broke my arm. So I show up in Michael Landon's office right before we're supposed to begin filming. Hi, I have a huge cast, a broken arm. Not a happy man. He did not kill me or break the other one, as he mentioned he had thought of doing. But he was very nice to me. Actually, it was very interesting. He was very sweet to me and said, oh, yes, he signed my cast. Said, oh, yes, no more skateboarding, dear. We really can't have that. And then I left the room, and I could hear the screaming through the door. So what they did is they said, okay, we've worked it out. Momentarily, we had a fit, like, oh, my God, she broke her arm. But here's what we do. We've got this episode where you fake everybody out and you're in a wheelchair. So since you do fall off the horse, we're going to go with your fake and the crippled thing, but you do break your arm. And we put an 1800s cast over the real cast, and that's going to cover you for a couple of weeks, and then you're not in that one, so that gives you 2 weeks, and you're out of the cast. So don't ever do this again, and thank you. So here you go. So I have this. So I'm trying to push the wheelchair, and I can't, because I actually do have a broken arm. And so Doc Baker's going, you can use your other arm, and I'm like, no, actually, I can't. So that was a little difficult, but this is the episode everyone likes, because after I've really just made everyone miserable. And then I've even dragged Willie into it. I've threatened him to blackmail him and to beat him up. He has to get more candy, and I drag him into the whole thing. And it's just horrible. And every time everyone leaves the room, I'm up dancing, playing with my dolls, I'm eating candy, and people just want to kill me. So Laura finds out. She peeks through and finds out that I'm totally faking. And she takes me for a little stroll and pushes me down a hill, a cliff virtually, an embankment, into a pond in the wheelchair. And it's sort of whatever happened to Baby Jane, but it's in reverse, because I've got the blonde Betty Davis wig with the big curls, and she's sort of the dark-haired, Joan Crawford, and it's sort of like Joan Crawford's revenge for Baby Jane with the wheelchair. And actually, there is a connection, because Larry Germain, the hairdresser who helped me with my curls, him and Gladys Wittencoy did my hair, Larry helped design the wig. Larry was also Betty Davis's hairdresser for many years. So for people who say, so that Nellie ringlet, was that like Baby Jane Hudson in Whatever Happened to Baby Jane? Yes, it was. So it's true. So I go down this hill in the wheelchair. I went down part of the hill, and then the stunt girl went down the other part of the hill and flew out of the chair. I didn't have to do the backflip. And then they took me to a longer hill, because they needed to have a lot of footage of me going down a hill in a wheelchair. And they put me in the chair and shot me down a longer hill and filmed that. Now, once again, no safety equipment. Yes, I didn't have to end up in the pond, but I'm in a chair with no seat belts and an actual broken arm, and I'm only 13 years old, and it's a wooden chair, and it's not secured to anything. They just kind of went, boom, there you go, and shot it down, and had the camera's on a dolly. The camera's got protection. It's on a track, and it's got, like, people. I'm not on a track. I'm just bouncing down a hill in a chair, going, hey, wait, this is a really bad idea. So I am actually screaming in that sequence, thank you. And then I had to get in the pond, which meant they had to put a trash bag over the cast, and then put the 1800s cast on that, so the cast wouldn't get wet, because it was the 70s, so it wasn't fiberglass, it was actually plaster. Oh my God. So yes, it was very messy, and once again, more filthy water. It was the pond by the mill, and this was the morning where we're standing there in my little blue nightie and my little hat and my cast, standing waist deep in this water, and Michael's there with me, and we're going to have me squish down in the water and get all wet and come up spitting, and he says, Alison, do you have a swimming pool where you live? And I said, no, I don't. He said, well, after this, you'll be able to swim in your toilet. Because it was disgusting, as well, stagnant green moss growing. And then I'm like, oh, good, I'll just put my face in here now. So, yeah, so then I had more exposure to germs and viruses and Christ knows what else in the pond.
And leave showbiz?
Why leave showbiz? Exactly. But yes, the down the hill, it is everyone's favorite episode. I have people literally all over the world, every country I hear from, every fan I talk to, from the youngest to the oldest, from people who watched it when it was on to people who watch it in reruns, everyone, the French, the Americans, the Portuguese, all say, my favorite episode, that one where you go down the hill in the wheelchair, it's everyone's favorite show.
Right. I interviewed David Fastina a couple of weeks ago, and he was on the show once.
Everybody was on the show once. Everyone was on Little House on the Prairie at least once. Who did we have? We had Jason Bateman was on the show. Sean Penn was on Little House on the Prairie.
Really?
Sean Penn actually saved my reputation. I owe Sean Penn I have a Sean Penn story. Hello.
That's all for now. Next time, Alison talks about being propositioned by Hervé Villachez on Fantasy Island, how Alison's real-life in-laws reacted when they found out their son was marrying Nellie Olsen, and of course, Sean Penn's appearance on Little House. I'm David Levin. You can follow Pop Goes the Culture on Twitter at PopGoCulture, on Facebook, or email me at popgoestheculturetv@gmail.com. And if you like us, for Pete's sake, share and subscribe. I'll see you next time.